today is um, AI enablement. How can we increase adoption of AI tools? And Tiago is going to be moderating. So Tiago, take it away.
Hi everyone. Sorry, my internet decided not to work,
Oh
so
dear.
I'm dived in. But can you guys hear me okay?
Hmm. Yeah, we've got some new
Nice.
members too. We may want to introduce them or have them introduce themselves.
Yeah, I was going to say that. So we get some new people joining. Do you guys want to introduce yourselves?
Yeah, Chris, maybe Chris can start.
I'm actually your guest speaker for today.
Oh,
So
okay. Oh, that's right. Okay,
yes,
you're with Slalom. Great. Well,
I
welcome.
am. I am indeed. Thank you so much. Yeah.
Yeah.
Based in Denver, but represent for Slalom, I actually have a global role, and my functionality is really under AI transformation and strategy. And I'm here to kind of demo one of our exciting tools that we use. But really, the whole idea too is not sales. It's just to think about like, how are we thinking about this whole AI transformation? What does it need to look like? And we've got some fun stuff that we've been able to create and build that's like, oh, that's intriguing. How might that mean, what does that mean for us when we're trying to figure out what to do with our AI transformation, the ROI, the KPIs, and making sure that we're actually investing in the best way possible? So that's what I'm here to help talk about and where we are. But Thiago, do you want to get us started?
I think we're going to start with the discussion on AI enablement first, and the second half we're going to go with the demo. I think that's the order of the agenda, right, Bettina?
Exactly.
Perfect. So to start the conversation on the AI enablement and AI adoption piece, we shared an article from MIT Sloan that I read a few days ago and I thought was pretty interesting. Don't know who of you had the chance to read it, but it got us some interesting topic to discussion. And I want to share with the group and heard from you guys some of the questions that came up after reading this article and see where we are there. So talk about AI adoption overall, right? So question for you guys, like what are like the challenges you are facing your own companies with AI adoption? Is everybody using it? People are scared.
Yeah, I'll just offer this. I'm still new at my company, but I just stepped in as the VP of IT here, and I report to the CFO and COO. We have a co-president situation, and they report to the board every quarter. AI is now a topic in every board meeting, and so my role has been expanded to work with the business to start by just inventorying what have we got and how much are we spending. And then out of that, we're going to be coming up with our AI acceptable use policy and manifesto and every other thing that drives the company forward. But we're really back at square one, finding out what we're doing today.
Yeah, I think part of the adoption challenges are just the security and the privacy elements. Still some fear, uncertainty, and doubt around how the LLMs use the data, where it goes, regardless of the guarantees and the suggestion that none of the information is used for LLM training. I think there's still quite a bit of fear mongering out there and hesitancy in some spaces.
Probably the most consistent challenge I've run across is people don't have there's not an approach that makes sense to people. We get that it's new and there's so many things that are unknown, but the approaches of people hear the big things out there. AI is coming for your job. You're going to have a breach that just the other day, who was it that had their AI delete their database? There's all these things that are so much chaos and unknown. People are hesitant to do anything when it's presented as this new tech instead of here's a multiplier. Here's something that will make your life easier. We've all been selling tech either internally or externally for decades. The only people don't care how cool your technology is. in that respect, AI doesn't matter. What matters is how will it make our lives easier versus harder? What problems will it solve? If you don't have those discussions before you even talk about the AI, people are just think it's gonna take their job, it's gonna destroy security, all the things that it can do poorly. People assume that it will. So it's getting that human element really seems to be the biggest blocker that I've come across consistently is how do I do it? We have meetings like I've been to dozens of here's how AI is going to work. And then every once in a while, a brave CEO will raise their hand and say, can somebody repeat that in English now? And how do I actually do something with this? And that question hasn't been answered, and it's not going to be answered for quite some time, but it's going to be an iteration. If you don't have people on board with it, doesn't matter. And I find that as my biggest challenge that I've run into is how do you get people on board with what this looks like, given that we don't know what it'll look like in 6 months.
So we have a policy and SOPs around it, and we actually monitor AI use. I find that I'm shutting off tools quite often. I have business who is out developing apps more than I have developers that are out developing apps in AI. So from a security perspective, I think that's my biggest concern and biggest chase. Adoption is not an issue for me. It's reining adoption in.
Very good point. So I was talking to a client this week in the health and life cycle industry, and we were conducting a series of interviews with stakeholders asking, okay, so what's your blocker for AI enablement and all those things? And two topics got my mind when I was talking to them that I was not thinking about before. One person shared, one VP of technology shared that he has fear of being wrong in public. And I asked him, tell me more, right? And he said, yeah, because we are using AI so much, there's no time to check for hallucinations, and sometimes we just go with it, right? And if someone catches it, it is concerning, right? And I said, yeah, that might be a problem because if you don't check, we are willing to crowdsourcing, right? And it might be wrong. So that was an interesting topic that I never thought about before. And another person shared, this person was on the business side, and she shared that, like, who is accountable for their errors? Like, we get this data, we use this data, we share this data, we even publish this data, right? And if it's wrong, who's accountable? Like, can you we blame the model? No, right? We have to blame a human, right? And there's no accountability, at least in that company, for the inconsistent outputs that comes. And sometimes I'm pretty sure there's no accountability for the input, right? Because data quality is the source of most of the hallucinations if the quality is low. So those are interesting topics that I heard from those interviews.
And just along those lines, real quick, I work in the insurance space, and most insurance companies that do liability insurance are excluding AI now. So if your company's using AI, you no longer generally are going to have coverage for the liability of anything it does. You're on the hook for that yourselves.
Yeah, we kind of saw that coming.
Yeah, I mean it presents a whole opportunity to write that insurance, but it was interesting that insurance companies are at least at the point where they're saying, yeah, we're not going to sign up for that. We're going to exclude it from your policy. And if you have all of these protections for writing bad code, if your AI generated the code, you're on the hook for it.
Makes total sense. Another question that we publish for discussion today is how can we make AI safe, right? For people to try to be responsible on the use of it. What techniques are you guys using in your companies to make the use of AI safer? I'll share one that I heard this week, and it's pretty standard, right? So we all build our playbooks, right, for data governance, for AI governance, and most of those playbooks, they just stay in the shelf, right? And how can you make sure that we are working using AI according to the guidelines from the workbook, the playbook that we put together? And it took us a while to build that. One of our clients shared that yes, they built the playbook, but in order for people to read it, they create gamification. I said, "Oh, interesting. Like gamification, I thought it was dead, and it's kind of coming back, right?" And within Slalom, we create our own gamification program, maybe mid-year 25. We called AI Bingo. So we pretty much had tasks for each person to do on a daily basis that put us in front of a specific piece of AI, right? And you have to complete all those tasks, there were 30 of them, to get an award. And that was something that I thought was very interesting. Like a lot of people were commenting about the outcomes, the new features. Like one day is just build a PowerPoint using Copilot. The other day was creating an image using a different model like Gemini. So all those small tests putting together expose people to more options, more tools, more features, more possibilities to enrich what we build with AI, or even for personal productivity. Um, and it got a good outcome. What else are you guys doing in your companies?
I'll go here. Again, this is early in our journey, but we've got a 40-year-old ERP that's completely custom. We've got two developers that took that over from the founders. So we've got a lot of code in our repos that has been kind of maintained and with a lot of tribal knowledge around that. So we've been writing code and fixing code with Augment for a while, but we're expanding that to make sure that Augment now has access to all of our repos, and we're creating a documentation harness around everything that we've got today as well. So we're just trying to give AI more work surrounding code writing than just writing the code itself. But that's just one thing that we're working on.
I'll share. So we don't. We're just barely getting into our own writing of software internal tools. I doubt we're ever going to have anything customer facing. That's something we've created just because that moat of system engineering means you understand a lot more than what AI is going to tell me this afternoon. So I'm not going to get 30 years of software engineering expertise of knowing what bad looks like just by asking a chatbot what it is. But I think for us, like enablement is the answer. It probably isn't uptake or adoption. Like everybody in our firm, we have 300 people. They're all using chatbots. They're using Copilot. They're using their own personal ChatGPT and Gemini and Claude and all this. And I think the best way that I think about this is to stratify it. We have the utility layer, which is just a chatbot. And most of the things I hear about governance and security and policies on that is don't put sensitive information, personal information in free public chatbots. Got it. Next, right? That's what you always hear. You always hear that. And whenever we talk about AI security, it's usually like, well, attackers are using it to write better phishing emails. Great. Given. Okay, that's not our problem. Our problem is now we're moving up the stack. So we have the utility layer here. That's just end users using chatbots, and yeah, there are risks there. Sure, we can all agree on those, and those there's probably solutions for. We have monitoring, we have filtering, we have all those type of things. And as we move up the stack, then we're getting into integration layers where now we have vendors that are weaving AI features, whether that's real or not, into pretty much every marketing page they have. And then when I get their SOC 2 reports, they don't even mention AI. That's a problem. Okay, what are your sub-processor agreements? Have you got a zero data retention with Claude, with Anthropic? I don't know. You don't tell me, right? Or they give me a kind of a handwritten, typed up in Word. Hey, this is how we approach AI. But it's like, well, this isn't a policy. This is just some good ideas here. And then we're up in construction layer. Now we're saying, okay, now we have users, and are we going to open up the floodgates to the citizen developer brigade? The business people, vibe coding, standalone HTML apps that they want pushed out to everybody. Well, now we're getting into the thing of, okay, what vulnerabilities are they creating, and the logic errors. So I think the answer to this, first of all, it's a massive thing. It's hard. I can tell you as the person here that's trying to be the one in front of this, not outsourcing it to the business people, and say, well, guys, you know what? I told you so. Have at it, and I'll good luck in that court seat. I'll just be over here saying you didn't come to me. I'm not trying to play it that way. I'm trying to play it as, okay, let me figure out the best ways, and I will flag when I see something risky and just ask you some questions about it. I'll ask you questions about your use case. One of the other things I'm seeing at my firm is when you have AI colored glasses on, the whole world looks like an AI problem. And so they're trying to solve math problems with an LLM. And I'm like, guys, that's probably not the best way to do this. We still have Excel. Excel is still a viable tool in today's business market. And people seem to forget that. They're saying, hey, I have all this like financial, let's throw it in an AI. It's like, no, throw it in Excel. I don't understand. So those are the types of questions. And this comes from honestly a governance layer. And one thing that someone said on here, I can't remember who, the challenge is accountability and dollars behind it. Because the business can talk a big game, but it's kind of like, okay, let's actually get on the same page and let's come up with an accountability, whether that's an office, a committee, a team, a function. Let's actually have somebody with some teeth that actually has this accountability. So if it goes wrong, we can't say, well, we trusted Anthropic, we trusted Microsoft, we trusted these guys and they let us down. No. Let's have a function or a team, whether that's legal, whether that's a committee, executive committee, managing partner, whoever, somebody has to own it. And then let's come up with the appropriate governance approaches. Are we going to go restrictive by default and you have to have a use case for everything? Are we going to have permissive by default where we have a graded set of controls as we get more risky? So these are things that I think a lot of firms, they all have plans to do AI. Everybody's implementing stuff, but how many actually have a true governance structure to this? A true, not just an end user policy, don't put stuff in free chatbots. Given that's not a policy. That is not, if that's your AI program, that's probably not sufficient. We need to actually have an approach that everyone in the business can agree on as far as the leaders. And then once it's a policy, once it's a program, and we have channels to enable. Now, I'm not talking about restrictive. So I've always played Dr. No. Okay, I always am the Department of No here in IT, but that's not the approach I'm taking. I'm saying, you know what? I want to do all this. I see the vision. I use it every day. I'm probably the biggest power user of AI in the whole firm. But I want to do it securely. I want to do it in ways that everyone can sleep at night and have trust that we don't end up having to call our insurer and say, hey, guess what? We really messed up and we've got somebody that's probably going to take us to court here. My 2 cents. You probably got more like a nickel, but.
And your insurer is going to say, sorry, not our problem. Just saying.
Yeah, that is true. Nice. The article also mentions about like some ways to measure the outcomes, right, of the use of AI. In your companies, which KPIs, SLAs are you guys using to measure the use of AI, if any?
I'll tell you the one I would love to see before and after. I would love to have a way to actually measure ROI because it feels like we're trading token cost and subscription costs for nebulous problems with no way to measure them. Say, well, everyone's using it. Great. Is that our metric? How many times someone open up a chat bot and outsource the thinking to it? I don't think that's a good metric. I think it's, how many jobs are we turning over? Did we freed up everyone's time? Well, we got a better pipeline of new work coming in. And what are we going to do with all this supposed time that we're freeing up? So these are tough questions. And I think a lot of businesses they're kind of saying, no. If we build it, they'll come. If we just need to give everyone subscriptions, we just need to have, an end user policy and then turn them loose and they start like cranking out self-contained code files or they start using it to make, vibe code, whatever. And, feed in documents and getting intelligence out of it. I mean, without really asking, okay, is that summary that I just did of this document, did it miss something? The best thing that I can point to with that is there's studies that show these call summarizers and note takers, they miss a large portion of the context, and they don't understand human hesitation and capitulating. They don't get that because they're not humans. They look at the words and say, you know, if the CFO said, oh, I don't know, I'm thinking about doing this, well, guess what goes in the summary? The CFO speculated on doing this action. It's like, did they really? The tough questions. That's my answer to that is what's the ROI on it?
Yeah, that makes total sense. And in my opinion, like if we don't come up with a specific use case for each project, right, or each use of AI, it'll be really hard for us to measure the outcomes, right? And that's why every time we have this conversation about top down, I got this request from my C level, from my CEO, that I need to build something with AI because everybody's doing it. Just use the technology for the technology's sake. My first question is, okay, why? Like, what do you want to build? Which use case you want to address that you think AI is the right solution? And sometimes AI is not the right solution. Just BI will do the work, right? You don't need to create a LLM. You can just use Excel, as we were talking about, right?
100%.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then the question is, well, we're going to fall behind. And my question always is like, who? You're going to fall behind who? Because everybody's in the same boat here. Like nobody's nailed this. So stop with the FOMO. Like unsubscribe from about 10 of your newsletters and let's focus on what we can actually do with this.
100%. How can we make that tangible, right? Yeah. We only have like 5 more minutes before I go to the second session. One question, one point that the topic covered is who has the ownership of AI governance in a company, right? So in our case, is like, is this owned by the VP of data, the CDO? Is it owned for business? It is owned for product? Who owns AI governance in your organizations?
Yes.
All of them.
I'll tell you what our plan
Who has a
is.
subscription?
Yeah, we'll have our officers actually own the governance. They'll have to sign off on it and report to the board, but I'll administer the whole thing. And we want to make sure that this doesn't take on too much of an IT burden or constraint, above and beyond administration. We want the different functional heads to own AI and the metrics for AI use in their own function, I would say.
I'll take a different approach there. I think IT is the one that needs to own it. And the reason why, in fact, specifically, I think security teams are already set up to own this because hopefully they understand risk. Hopefully they understand downstream consequences, vulnerabilities. I think these are questions because, as I said, the IT is typically the department of no. Well, there's a skill in there, and that skill is interrogation. We need more interrogation, not less. And the business, honestly, a lot of times sees FOMO and they see dollar signs. They're chasing opportunities to do what sometimes isn't super clear. We want to enable that. We want to enable real use cases, but we also want to be the ones that stand up in the room and say, hey, have you thought about this? Or how are you going to address this? How are you going to test this? Like, what is a good metric for your outcomes? What does good look like? Can you show us why this could go wrong?
So it's interesting. Just this morning, we had an issue at our company. We're just like everybody else. We're surveying the lay of the land, trying to figure out the ins and outs. Do we put controls in place to prevent? Do we allow them to explore? Do we yada, yada, yada? So one of our biggest challenges to the topic that was just, or question that was just asked is we don't have a single entity owner. We've got, for lack of a better term, a team that defines the relationship of AI within the company. And AI, from a technical perspective, is driven from IT. And when I say driven, it's administered from IT. We manage the payment, we manage the user creation, we manage yada, yada, yada. Until today, for example, we did ChatGPT Pro, and OpenAI has not enabled the ability to allow Pro to be managed centrally. It is a user by user basis account. They don't make it as part of the business or the enterprise. So that became an interesting challenge today because we're trying to figure out, great, who's going to own this? Because IT, I can go through and give you an inventory of who is using it, and the frequency that they're using it. But now we're decentralizing these accounts to the departments, so they can administer themselves, because OpenAI doesn't create a platform to allow us to centrally control it. And that scares the pants off me, because I'm now wondering, all right, if this ball starts rolling downhill, how many more users are going to get it that we're not going to be aware of? And now we're going to be in this paradigm of, hey, we're using Chat GPT, but ... and away we go. So yeah, it's kind of an interesting blend right now.
Yeah, no, we are on the same page here. Excellent. Okay, so thank you so much for the discussion. I think we got good insights and examples here. Let's go to the second half of our meeting. So we're going to have Chris Christian from Slalom here to talk a little bit about Enhance IQ from Slalom. It's an asset that we built that she's going to demo to us. And Chris, the mic is yours.
Thank you, team. Such a pleasure to be here. Thank you so much. Happy Friday afternoon. I'll look it into a nice weekend, hopefully. So yeah, my role here is really focused. I've got a bunch of hats that I wear, but the whole goal for me is to really understand, like, what are our teams really facing, and how can we bring some parameters to the chaos that's really happening, and how can we help people understand underneath and assess and analyze their roles to be able to optimize operations, use the technology to skill shift and free up this creativity and help employees reach their full potential. I've always said, like, jobs they're not going away, and I especially think that everybody here really feels that AI is here to enhance your roles, and it's really here to help try and figure out how much can I get things done faster, easier, more efficiently, still keeping that human in the loop, though, and making sure we're clear in regards to what that human's role becomes, as it may not be coding per se anymore, but it may be along the lines of verifying, validating the information, understanding that the data, where it's going and the governance that goes around it, or also, enhancing their own role into something, more strategic and broader thinking. So that's kind of the intention of where I come from personally, as well as Slalom, to say, how are we actually going to do this and help meet our clients where they are as well. Again, I'm sharing, nothing is meant to be salesy, but it's a really cool tool. I get really excited sometimes, so bear with me as I kind of do that at times. All right, are you guys able to see?
Yeah, we can see.
Yeah,
Yes,
got
we
it.
have it.
Okay, I'm going to stop sharing this version of it, though, and get back into regular. Here we go. Okay, I'm going to try and fly through a bunch of these slides. A bunch of them will just have like a few words at the very beginning of what we are. So the intention here is to go over this, what we call our AI value platform. And this is one of the modules in the AI value platform. I believe Thiago actually did a demo of a few other of the modules. I'll kind of just highlight that as we dive into the demo. But first, I'm going to go through a handful of slides just to kind of level set where we are. Don't hesitate to ask questions as we go. I want to make sure that we got this. So this is like a very high level view of the 5, what we call these offerings, but really the intention is to say, have we thought about everything across the transformation
Hey,
for AI?
Chris,
Yeah.
we're not seeing your screen. If you're
Oh, you're not? Oh, golly. Apologies. Thank you so much. Here we go. Better. Okay. So I kind of walked through what's the normal, like what does it look like if you're doing transformation? So just a real quick background, I have got over 20 years of digital transformation experience on the client side. I worked at AT&T, Yahoo, MasterCard, Visa, and Equifax, all in a function of usually client services, which includes sales and account management in addition to operations. So that is my background. I recently, in the past 5 years, moved into consulting. But I've been the VP of multiple heads and roles across the organization for these companies. Most recently, before I went back into consulting, I was a head of innovation and the deputy CTO for CBRE. So I really do feel this pain of like, what does it look like when we got all this chaos happening and how are we going to organize it? I call myself a chaos pilot in trying to navigate through some of these crazy waters. So this first slide is just to kind of give you this, okay, a setting of what do I have to make sure I'm thinking about when I'm thinking about transformation in AI. So we've actually called these offerings, it's essentially putting your North Star together, understanding where you're headed and making sure that we define that. This AVP tool falls under strategy, and it talks about how can we actually help you understand what's happening across your place, what type of use cases are going to be the most beneficial, both coming from a client as well as what the expert, our experience has been, and kind of like that. Office is all things really governance and COE, Center of Excellence. Studio is our prototyping. Let's prove that it can be done, show it, teach everybody, and that type of thing. AI Factory is the expansion of it across all of your organizations. So think industrializing AI, think of forward deployed engineers, that type of thing. And then the final bucket, but probably the most important, is your people side. How do I actually strengthen the people and the processing to scale AI? So thinking about role-based training, what they need to understand now in the new world, and also, evolving the processes that we have to change for that. But this is my personal favorite slide. I call it the subway map. It kind of looks like the tube in London. The intention is to say nothing is really linear, and especially for organizations that are starting in different spots. I know a lot of companies are kind of, I would almost call it like phase two. They deployed a whole bunch of stuff. They've got ChatGPT, might have some Claude, Copilot, and different tools, but just kind of let it loose on their population and let folks try and figure things out on their own. And now they're like, I got to get my arms around this. Let's figure out, like, make sure we've got the right rules in place, the governance, who's going to be owning this, where are we storing our agents, all of that type of thing. There's a lot of like mid-tier, mid-market firms that I've seen. The intention here is to show you you can start anywhere and get on the train and then start going through all the stops. Okay. The biggest thing is how we remain competitive, as you guys know, in this time of AI and automation. The news is not helping organizations right now. Everything from mass layoffs to, AI's excitement in regards to what they're accomplishing right now. It's definitely facing a lot more challenges than we faced in the past. I've been on the front end of digital transformation, prior to AI, and that was, comparatively speaking, so much slower. And we are now at this, like, everything that we're doing, I'm writing a point of view right now. I know my point of view is going to be probably outdated in 6 months or less. So I have to update it. But this idea of how do we keep on top of it is the biggest challenge we're facing. So we struggle to align your skills, technologies, responsibilities, and to drive the organization into the future. And while you're facing all of those challenges, you're also facing, like, how am I going to be able to harness all this technology while keeping the human in the loop? What does that need to look like? So that's where the Enhance IQ tool comes into play. It just went black on me. There we go. And I'm going to dive in a couple more slides, and then we're going to go into the demo. So here's what Enhance IQ is. It's the real-time insights for your evolving workplace that really goes through the AI role and a task analysis. So thinking about, okay, back in the old days, we used to do those giant butcher papers on wall. And if you guys, we would all bring everybody to the room. So I will give you an example. At the AT&T, I was launching a new service. This is back when SBC long distance was a big thing. And we were trying to define how we were going to do our operations from order to, making sure we got billing all the way through. And we would have everybody in the room. They had their own color sticky note and we tapping it all across the board. Who needs to go first? Where does this need to go? For those of you who are, been around a while, you've probably done this yourself. This idea of that's your process and that's how what you've been thinking about methods and procedures. We're trying to say what needs to happen on the AI side so that you can reduce some of that overwork, potentially have a lot more efficiencies. So that's what this tool is going to do. It's really reshaping jobs and employees for the necessary skills of the future. And this is a big thing. And this is one of the reasons that I came to Slalom, is because they do understand value, like this human in the loop. Like, it has got to be human centric. AI tools are awesome and amazing, but they are enhancers. They are here to enhance what we are doing as employees, as people who are running and owning businesses, in order to make sure that we are optimizing what we've got and becoming future ready. All right. I am going to dive into the tool now. Okay. Get out of the way. There we go. All right, so what we have here, I'm just going to give a quick refresher. I think Thiago actually did the demo back in October, so it's been a few months. The intention here is to just kind of highlight, this is the AI value platform. This is one of our demo examples. This is a massive telecom firm. It looks a lot like one that I worked for back in the day. And the idea here is we're going to kind of show you what we've been able to, capture for this large telecom organization. These are all the tools, the modules that we have. Last time, Thiago actually probably went through an estimate, which is your customer value estimator. It really creates and manages customer value estimates, which is like modeling financial and non-financial KPIs. So what we would do is we go in there, develop a whole use case, and this is all done usually with the person in the room saying, let's make sure these numbers make sense. What are we trying to do? We're trying to reduce the time to market. Currently, it's 18 months, or we're trying to get it down to 18 months. We want to get it reduced. We think we can do this with our AI tools. We think we've got about 2/3 of this we can approach, and then this expected improvement. So you can kind of see everything that we would be putting into a use case would come from the conversations that we're having, plus best experiences that we've had with other clients and information. So that's the first one, is estimating. What do we actually see as a customer value type of ROI that we would get? The second one is all things assess. And this is really understanding, how are we actually going to be able to understand where our people are. So this is an assessment tool to really help you understand where are people on their learning curve, what type of things do we need to start focusing on, and how do we prep our organization in order to make sure that we're ready for these changes. Calculate is absolutely one of my personal favorites, and I think Thiago went through this one too. This is your use case calculator, and you go through and you develop your use cases specific to where you're trying to say, how am I going to prove ROI on these type of things? So let's go through, this is the first one. AI-driven product portfolio rationalization. We understand, who is involved. This is the product development, the number of users we're estimating, what is the business value. And again, these are all multiple choice in addition to being able to put your fingerprints on it and say, this is what I need to be able to focus on. Descriptions come from teams, but we also use what was worked at other companies, and we blend it together, leveraging AI to say, let's make sure we're defining this appropriately. Again, everything has to have a human in the loop for this to make sure that this is accurate. Go through an explanation of benefits and kind of walk through that. The big meat and potatoes of all this is really putting together your calculator. Now, these are already done. This is the demo. When you kind of walk into them, let me see what we got here. You can see that we would be putting together, this is that use case, and understanding all of the moving parts and the tasks that are tied to this use case. So as we talk about AI-driven product portfolio rationalization, these are identifying the big 4 areas that we can say that we're going to be able to reduce, improve our efficiencies and really increase revenue. This is both revenue increasing as well as cost reduction for both of them. Again, we walk through the entire use case with our partners and say, all right, what's the actual realization rate as we start making sure that this is going to be the AI tool that we're going to use? Should it be 100% in the first year? Should it be 50? We measure and estimate, what that needs to look like. From there, as you look through, and what you can do is click on these. Oh, it's not letting me click right now, but you're able to click on these IDs that kind of give you a simple of what's the revenue optimization and what are we doing for total product portfolio revenue. Those are the numbers that are created to help us understand like the total formula to get to 3% of revenue optimization to be improved upon with a increase in revenue for the first year of just under $1 million. All right, I'm going to move on into enhance, but this kind of gives you a sense in regards to where we are on all of these use cases, how it's kind of captured. You can see there's a bunch of these use cases in here. We have our own, but we also have the ones that come from whoever we're working with at the time. All right, now let's dive into Enhance IQ. As I shared before, this one is really focused on the multinational telecommunications firm. These are business functions. Now we're looking at the business function of an organization. So we've got enterprise sale, customer care experience, network ops, supply chain, HR, and marketing, and product development lifecycle as well. So your product teams. I actually have run customer care and experience, so this is one of my personal favorites. The whole intention here is to understand what kind of functions are actually happening within each one of these organizations, these groupings. So you go through and you understand, okay, let's focus on call center operations. What all is engaged here? And how do I understand under the L1, we kind of go back and define it. All of these functions happen under customer care. Then we go into saying, let's understand all those tasks. So remember those sticky notes from our butcher paper? Understanding those type of tasks. So now each one of those work streams is being identified as workforce scheduling and forecasting, channel routing and queue management, agent tooling and knowledge management. So now we've got our AI one, and then the shifting operations and continuity. As we go through all this, the goal now is to say, okay, how can we actually understand where the next level of task needs to happen and which one of these tasks can be done by AI? I'm going to show you. This is based on LLM data. We do leverage the Google platform, and sometimes it takes a little bit longer. So forgive me if this, though, you'll see this moving a little bit slow. As we go through the L3, so you guys can imagine L1 is thinking about the organization, the team underneath customer care. L2 is in regards to the functions of that team that they need to perform. L3 is really talking about the task title. So to me, this is often where that sticky note with the butcher paper really kind of stepped in regards to those functions. And then we define what's under that task description to make sure everybody's on the same page. What exactly are we doing when we say forecast inbound contact volume by channel? So we're trying to generate weekly and monthly inbound volume forecast across all of our mediums, voice, chat, etc., using both historical data, seasonal patterns, what the bill cycle rates in that data needs to look like, and also known drivers such as active promotional campaigns, planned network maintenance issues, and apply all of that into a separate forecast model for postpaid, prepaid, and enterprise queues to reflect the distinct contract rate and profiles and the service level agreements requirements of each subscriber segment. So here's the function that we really need to make sure that we're doing. Now we're understanding, okay, where is this going to fall? How are we going to make sure that this piece, and you guys can see, I just want to kind of show you, there are a lot of these. This is done again. This used to be done, if you guys remember, when you had to do methods and procedures and try and capture this. This is months and months and months of effort, from sitting in those rooms and doing those butcher paper things to capturing everything, updating your methods and procedures, and making sure that everybody understands the new ways of doing business. This now is done in a matter of days to weeks in order to really understand these functions, leveraging what's already been created by the organization, plus what we have in our database based on best practices, and then putting AI to put those two together and creating what this can be. So you can see here it says 112 L3 tasks that have been identified all under this single, the customer care bucket. And let me pull this out. So as we kind of go through all of this, and you're now able to understand which processes need to be able to can be leveraged under AI, and how can we update, and what do we need to do for our folks in order to get them up to speed as well. So what's fun about this too is you can review the profile, understand your business function and who needs to be doing what. This is all exportable. You can edit it, you can change it, download it, you can share it with regards to internal reporting and making sure that folks have access to it. Close that. Oops, wrong button. The exporting of the data allows you to also pull this all out. You can put it into individual processes, get it created into task generation, task analysis, and use case generation, and of course the skill recommendations. Where do we need to go next for each individual process for this team? There's also the advanced section that allows export process data to happen. You can actually say, okay, I want to add a few things in regards to my task generation, or I want to subtract. Same thing across the board for each one of these. And you can export to Excel for folks to verify if they're concerned and they want to be able to see things in paper again. And then from there, you're able to actually say, okay, we ended up understanding all of the task generations that are in play. We know also which task, it took about 31 minutes for the task analysis. You can see the use case generation just took under 10 minutes, and the skill recommendations were done in under 30 minutes. So all of that is your output that comes out of Enhance IQ to say, here's our roadmap to understand what we need to do from the task perspective to make them leverage an AI, and how do we understand, under our people, what type of skill sets do we need to either bring in or train up of our individuals as well. And that becomes your roadmap as you create all of this put together. I'm going to go back to the home page. And what's really fun is you come back here and you can see your dashboard. And this again is exportable. We had 13 active use cases across this, with a total of 4 different assessments over across 9 functional areas. As we go through this and we dive deep into each area, it's looking like over a 3-year period, you can see here $30 million in regards to the expected costs. And again, these cost numbers come from what you're actually paying for, what you're looking at, tokenization, all of the type of things that are changing. Maybe the cost also of labor, what's going to take on that piece, as well as let's think about storage costs and things about your data. Everything can go into here to understand, in order to transform and make some of our tasks to be leveraging AI, how much is it going to cost to us to be able to do this? So it takes into account all of those costs. We look across the board, we start looking at, all right, over that 3 years, when do I start seeing the actual benefit? And what's really cool is that this one shows benefit very, very quickly. Let me get down to it. And you can start to see the 3-year benefit at just over $57 million. From a profit perspective, the calculations are done at about, after they take away from all the costs and what the effort is going to be, it brings up about 26 million. And then the average ROI is about 81%. We dive into each one of these sections, use case by benefit impact. You can see here where you're going to actually see the biggest bang for your buck and what you want to be focusing on first, second, third, fourth. If you only have a limited number of resources to be able to do this, or if you can take on all of these at the same time, or prioritization of where you want to start first. So you can imagine here, AI-driven product portfolio is the number 1. End-to-end demanding forecasting, rebalancing is number 2. These all come from what we just showed you on the enhanced side of these functions and the use cases underneath it. So in the ROI distribution is really like thinking about these AI use cases as you go into it. Like if there's 3 use cases that are really going to show us about 22 to 53% of ROI. I can dive into each one of these as well as we kind of go through. One of my favorites, though, is to show you the prioritization matrix and show you where you need to be focused on right away of what type of tasks need to be done. So you're thinking about Enterprise AI Navigator and then delay or defer AI-enabled capital allocation.
Chris?
Yes.
Are these, do these consider like quick wins and gaining momentum versus overall ROI? Because like a lot of the cases, your highest ROI are the ones that may be the riskiest to undertake the beginning. You might want to start with some that are just quick wins to gain momentum and get those muscles built up as an organization. And then anyway, just wondering if you have that built in here, or is that something you just do manually after? Or?
No, that's a really good point. When you are diving into the use case side of the house, you're focused on the risk. And so it's like, how much is the effort? How big is this? What is the estimate in regards to how much uplift we have to do in order to get folks ready and moving? So you can think this first one again is that AI driven product portfolio rationalization. It's significant. It's going to be a lot of work. We're looking at least 75% level of effort on here. So that will significantly bring down, your likelihood of it happening right away, because even though your ROI in the long term is high, your level of effort, and then if I go to the next section of risk, so think risk from both operations, ethical risks, we've got legal and regulatory, technical, all of this will bring down that, like, do this right now, all the way kind of like more medium. Because even though you're going to get a lot of benefit from it, it's going to take a while and it's going to take a lot of change. So it does take into that account. But
these are risk-adjusted ROIs then, is what you're saying?
That is correct. Thank you, Guy.
Cool. There's still that, is there a human in the loop there that says, yeah, that's still the best ROI, but it's still a huge lift and we're not ready for that. So then bump one of those smaller lifts up in the top. That kind of
100%.
Okay. Awesome. This looks really cool.
And as you dive deeper too, like you can see, I was talking about these one-time costs, thinking like how do I train people? Model development and training, integration, deployment, data management. And then we go into the recurring costs. So everything is really here to capture. These are also on our, some of these are already kind of populated, and I personally leverage AI too, is in order to make sure, is there anything I'm missing? Is there anything I haven't thought about? Talking to my partner to say, where else are you guys seeing expenses or costs that we need to make sure we take into consideration? And it's kind of like a back and forth. Like, do you really need to have that investment going forward? And let's think about that. So it brings it all together, total cost for just this one example, total benefit of what we expect to see of a revenue increase of over 6 million, and then, cost reduction and cost avoidance. That all came through when we were doing the overview and then the analysis. This analysis is your more detailed level dashboard that shows you each part of what, for this one example of the use case, can kind of dive in. So as I think about the ROI, 2 years, it kind of gives you percentages. Really, you want to be able to see, is this a red, yellow, or green type of thing for me to get done? And that's what I really love about it. It does show, yes, you need to do it, but it is going to take a lot of effort, and you need to be focused in regards to making sure you have a solid plan to get this over the line. All right. So business functions, also this piece about the skill recommendations, just so you guys can see this as well. How this actually kind of comes into play. It defines everything that we have across the board for each part of this so that it can say, yes, this needs to be done by AI. And then this is going to be, if you remember back in those butcher paper days, as you pull out and you're saying, okay, now I know what the new process needs to look like. Where do I need to go in order to focus on my individuals and upskill them in order to make sure that they are potentially validating these processes? Like you said, humans are still liable for mistakes that AI makes. So let's go back and make sure that we're not missing anything. And then, there's nothing like, especially in call center and like in customer care, like talking to an actual human. So even if AI is taking those first 3 levels, you've got the people who understand the processes, like that value of knowledge doesn't go away. That is still so critical in this new world of leveraging AI as your intern, as your level 1 employee. And then they skill up as much as they can, but that person who really is dictating what's happening and what the world's going to look like is still going to be your experts in the room, your people who know the business, and the people who still want to hear a friendly voice on the other end of the line. So I hope this is kind of helpful. I think it's a fun tool. You can see too, is like, as they dive into these results, what's amazing to me is how in depth and how very specific it gets to these level and these tasks. This one tells you whether or not it's ready for AI, tells you whether or not we've got the percent of human involvement, and then it should, actions. That the actions is really to make sure that this is where I want to go next. I'm going to take this forecasting inbound contact volume by channel. I'm going to build an agent in order to do this actual thing. And now I'm going to sit back and make sure it's done. And I'm going to have somebody validate and verify. You can see the ones that are saying, these are ready, but there's still a lot of human involvement, especially as you get up here to the 60. Execute structured supervisor shift handoff. That one still, AI readiness is only about 50%, and you need a 2/3, this high amount of human involvement on this one as well. So it really does create a big heat map of where you can be focusing on putting AI into your organization and your processes. And then the other tool I just showed you the ROI of doing that so that you can remove your humans from some of these tasks and then have them working on more strategic things.
Do you have a feedback loop to get as built or as like are you mentioned earlier that you connect to the systems. I assume that throughout the whole process as they're implementing, you are connected to their systems, pulling in the measurable impact to the organization. Is that accurate?
For the ROI perspective, so what we do is we calculate and show what the ROI potential is going to look like. And then we help you build a KPI tool in order to say, how are we making sure that we're meeting all of these KPIs? So now what I really liked about it is it helped me understand where I could start measuring and what I need to be measuring from that. The dashboard on that piece is not necessarily tied into the AVP tool, but that is something that we, obviously help folks build so that they have that dashboard ready to pull that data and measure and make sure what we claim to say is actually happening.
Perfect. Excellent.
That's a good call out, though. I'm gonna make sure. So just so you can kind of see this, I like this slide. It shows you in-depth task analysis and realignment is really difficult. So you've got machine tasks, human tasks, and then tasks that you don't need to do anymore. So the whole point of this is to say, where can we remove things from the whole process? Back in the old days, it was like, oh, I had 3 different color sticky notes all on the same task. Why is everybody touching this task? So that type of idea also happens when you're doing AI and helping to make things more efficient. But I am happy, and like if you guys want anything from this, from the slides or anything else, I'm happy just to send you so you can kind of see like how this is actually really a cool deck because it gives you the point of view. Like, what do I need to be thinking about, and how do we look at this as the lower lift to higher lift of how we're actually doing different types of solutions across the whole AI spectrum. And so everything from assist, which is like productivity and routine tasks. So think about using Copilot as you're going through your email. That's one of the things. To augmenting, now I've got an actual other brain. I call my AI sometimes my second brain to help generate ideas and where I need to be focused for a client. I personally create like these executive briefings for folks so they can really see who do I need to go talk to? What conversations are they having on the internet? That's where augmentation really comes into play. When you're thinking anticipation, this is like forecasting data, and you saw that in the enhanced tool. If I can have my agents forecasting for me, that's going to really, think about what marketing does now and all of that data. Like you can get out of that all the way down to true agentization. And I just made that word up, but leveraging agents and putting them across your enterprise. That's what the enhanced tool does to identify where's the best place to put that, and that also shows you what you need to do for your skill sets of your people. I get excited, guys, so forgive me.
Oh, that was great, Chris.
Oh, that's
Yeah?
perfect.
Yeah. And if you're willing to share the
yeah,
slides, you
right
can
on
send them out
time.
to the group.
Oh, that'd be great, Bettina. Thank you. I might have to do some cleanup, but yes, I think I can absolutely share this.
Yes, if you guys have further questions, feel free to share with the group. We'll be sending the presentation, of course. And yeah, we are right on time. So if you guys don't have any further questions,